Hello and welcome to PlayStation Racer. My name is Mitchell Morgan and today we are at the Fuji circuit for the same race that we did for the menu book 47. Now I managed to get the stamps by getting third place, but I really wanted to get gold and I need it for part of the game. So I spent an unusual number of miles. I found out something really interesting about the weather, which I will share with you during this particular race. I also used a strategy that really shouldn't have worked, and we'll talk a little bit more about that during the race. And I also want to talk a little bit, before we get into the video, about the livery. I found this livery in the livery editor where you can download other people's. It was from Word Magician 2222. It's based on the Aston Martin F1 2023. And I really love this livery, so I just want to make or do a shout out to Word Magician and just say thank you for sharing this livery and enabling me to put it on my car. And I'd like to think that that made all the difference in managing to get gold in this particular race. So with that, let's get into the video. Oh, before we actually get into the video, I would like to ask you one massive favour. I have a lot of people watching my videos and I am desperately trying to get the subscriber count up. If you could please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, I would be extremely grateful. I'd love to get to 1,000 subscribers before my birthday in July. If you've already subscribed, thanks ever so much. So if, like me, you've been running your Formula car for quite a while, it might be worth just checking the oil, because my oil was pretty badly worn, and one of the first things that I did was to go in and change the oil just to make sure that that is in tip-top condition. I actually did this as well while I was doing the 3 races, but for this one, if you haven't done it in a while, just check and make sure that your oil is okay. So then we'll go into the world circuits and we'll head across to Asia. But actually, before we do that, I'm just going to pop into the options. I have been requested that I do all of these world circuits on the normal settings, so I was just checking there to make sure that I did have the normal settings set. I'm going to use that for all of those now rather than jumping between hard and normal. I'm just changing to the medium tyres. Now I have been using the racing soft tyres for this particular race, but for this win I managed to do this on the medium with, as you're going to see, a very unusual strategy. The other settings were all the same, so you can pause the video and just have a look at those again if you wish to, but I want to get on with the race, so let's get into it. So I ran with this particular view with the dials, charging straight the way down into the first corner, second gear just to get it up the inside, and then trying to get on the back of the number 18 car as quickly as you can. Slipstreaming gear, as I said before, is all important. Now I did learn a few more things about actually driving this car on this track. This was a pretty scrappy lap to start with, so I'm not going to worry about that too much at the moment, but you'll notice that we are on racing medium tyres, not the soft strategy that we used before. At this point I decided to go with the racing mediums just to get us as far as we could into the race before the rain came, to give us some options as to whether we put the softs on and we go for a sprint if the rain is light, or whether we go for intermediates or even wets. The first time I started this evening, the rain was horrendous and really everybody was putting wets on, and I needed wet tyres, which I didn't have. So one of my advice to you would be to make sure that you've got all of the tyres available to you for this car. So here we go, we're going over the start and finish line for the second lap. Braking on the beginning of the curves there, really late, down into second. You would normally be able to overtake 1 or 2 cars there. Up through the gears down to this next corner, which we're going to take in 5th gear. There is a skid mark there. You start to turn at the very end of that skid mark on the curb, and then just let this run round 6th gear. Be really, really brave. You should be able to do that flat. Down into 2nd or 3rd gear. I did 2nd because there was a car there. Very often I'll take that in 3rd gear. And then again, just let this run. Full beans all the way down. As soon as you get to the Dunlop sign there, hit the brakes down into 2nd. You can take loads of the curb on the inside there. Leave this in 2nd. As you get to this apex, take it up into 3rd. And then leave it in 3rd all the way through here. You want to try and get that little green bit of the curve, and then try and get it turned in and over this little bit of curve as well. Now I'm jostling around with the gears here, 3rd, 2nd and a bit of 1st because of the traffic, but normally I do nearly all of that in 3rd. And as you are going through that little complex, what I'm actually doing is I'm listening to the revs, and as I hit the top of the rev range, that tends to be where I'm backing off for the corner. And then on the second part of that complex, I am braking when you get to the end of the curve. I'm going to cover that again in a moment when we get back around to it, because there is an awful lot that is going on right there. Got it a little bit sideways there. As I said, this wasn't overly clean. I had really had enough of the AI cars punting me, bashing me. So at this point, I really just wanted to get this done. And I really didn't worry about whether I was chucking it up the inside of AI cars or banging into them. I just got to the point where I just felt that, yeah, all was fair and nothing here. So as we come down here, bury the brake pedal, 2nd gear, over that bit of Astro, leave it in 2nd. As you get to this apex up into 3rd, leave it in 3rd. You hit the rev range, you need to start to turn over that green part, up the rev range. As soon as you start to hit the top, that bit of curb there, down into 2nd or 3rd. I went 2nd on that one, but very often I'll do 3rd. Up to this one, then down into either 2nd or 3rd for this one, depending where you are on the track. That was a little bit scrappy, but I do tend to be, as you come into that last corner, the tight one before the straight, very often I'm either in 2nd or 3rd, depending on how I'm feeling about the car. Very often it's 2nd, but it does tend to differ. Now, I'm not the most consistent of racer, I will be honest with you. I'm average at best, so I'm not looking for every blade of grass. I don't necessarily make sure that I'm using the same gear on every corner. Sometimes I'm just feeling the car and choosing the right gear or the right braking point according to how I'm driving and how the lap is going. So you can see there, that was 3rd gear through that one, normally 3rd, up through the gears here, 4, 5, all the way up to 6. And then as you come down here, if you are against traffic, so if you're catching the traffic, then I tend to go to the right hand side and then out brake them as you go into that corner. Just make sure you're in 2nd and then you get over the curb there. This is the edge of the curb right there. That's where I'm tending to brake, and that gives you a nice turn in, so you can just apex that corner there. So this one coming out a little bit to the left. Again, this is 2nd gear, so I want to drive off of the corner. What you want to try and do is get in the slipstream of a car, and then also use the overtake button, which was the 0 or the O key on my wheel, and just use that overtake button to try and catch up, or at least stay in the slipstream of the car in front. There is the overtake. They brake quite early for that corner. I brake at the beginning of the curbs and just be ready to get the car slowed down and try and just run over the inside of that corner if you can. This one is 5th all day long, and then through here I'm either 5th or 6th. Normally I try and get up to 6th. I find the car is a little bit better balanced. 3rd gear through here, try and get on the back of these cars as soon as you can. Now, one of the other things that I often do is a number of these corners I pick up penalties. This one you can cut, and then follow this one through. I'll show you the corner where that one sometimes I cut, but I'll show you the corner that gets me into the biggest trouble. And if you do happen to get a penalty, what you want to do is get up tight behind the car at this point, so that when you actually serve the penalty, which is sort of just at the start of this long straight, it's not actually at the start, but you'll see it here. So we're just coming up to where the penalty is. I'll drop it down into 4th gear for a half-second penalty, which is the one that I normally get, and then immediately use the overtake to try and catch up with the car in front. Or if there's a car that's overtaking me, then I'll pull in behind him, use the slipstream and the overtake button so that I can get that overtake done into or by the first corner. This is a corner you cannot cut. You must go to the right of that little bar line that's sticking up. If you don't, you will get a half-second penalty. I did notice that there were 1 or 2 other places where I was picking up penalties, but that was the main one. I can't honestly hand on heart say where the other ones were, but that 5th gear one is one that it does you every single time, so be careful on that one. So that's basically what we were doing. So what I've been doing with the soft setup was to run until lap 8. Now I found with the soft that the front racing car was just getting away, and I could constantly get silver, but I could never get that all-important gold. I also tried the hard tyres. A lot of people on Reddit and other things were saying go with the hard tyres, don't pit, and you'll lead and win by 10 plus seconds. My experience on the normal settings, I couldn't do that. With the hard tyres, I just could not get close enough, even with the without the pit. So as you saw there, I took that too tight. I caught the bollard with my wheel, and immediately now I've got a half-second penalty. So what I'm going to do now is push as hard as I can to the line, and if we can pick up another car, then we'll use that for slipstreaming. But alas, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to now. And sometimes when I've been doing this, I have actually taken the penalty, because overtaking some cars through there is better than hanging back. You're better to throw the car up the inside, take the penalty, because if you can get a good long run, then I have found that I can get at least half a second ahead of the car, even with the penalty and also the slowdown in the vehicle. So you can always see how far ahead of Bonelli we are, potentially by cutting that particular corner. So lap times, they're not too shabby. 123, 126, 126, 124, 25, 25, 26. So they're all there or thereabouts. So consistency isn't fantastic, but I'm reasonably happy with my performance. So to the right hand side of that bollard, this time we were safe. Looking at the racing mediums at this stage, we're on lap 8, and the racing mediums are around about half warm, which isn't too bad. So about halfway through the race here, or a little bit over halfway through the race, and sort of halfway worn tyres. So here is the secret to this particular strategy. I didn't pit. I went all the way to the end on these tyres, and I really do not know how it did it. You watch until later in the video, and you'll know what I mean. But we didn't pit. We went all the way, and we had actually been looking after our tyres quite well. So at this stage, I'm hoping that I can keep it pointing in a straight line and in the direction that it needs to go, but I'm also hoping that Fraga and Yamanaka, and I hope I'm pronouncing those names correctly, are going to pit, because they are an awful long way away. I mean, over 12 seconds to the leader and over 9 seconds to the second place driver. So that is quite some margin to make up. And if you look at the red box, you'll notice that I never really make an awful lot of headway, even though I am pushing this as hard as I can. Now, the other thing that I'll draw your attention to at this moment in time is if you check the mileometer of this car, 1,300 miles to do the menu book and then this one race. I have run this and run this and run this for hours, choosing just about every different strategy that I could and just trying to find something that worked that will enable me as an average driver to get first place on the normal settings. Now, there will be people out there, and no doubt some of you will comment, to say that there are a number of areas where I could have been quicker, and I fully appreciate that. But I will remind you that I consider myself to be a C-rated driver, not even a B or an A. Now, the other thing that I would draw your attention to is, have you noticed the weather? There is no rain at the moment. And one of the things that I found is when I first started to run this particular race, I have very, very heavy rain. The more that I left the PS5 on and the more that I was running, the lighter the rain got, to the point where if you look at the weather radar right now, there is no rain on the weather radar, even though I've got this zoomed out completely. So that was the other thing that I found. If you really are not getting on with the rain in this particular race, then just stick with it, keep running, keep doing the race. You need to set aside a good few hours, but just keep on going, and you may well find that the weather gets better and better and better for you. And obviously this pure single set of mediums, you really need to have some fairly decent weather for this particular strategy. So as we come over the line for lap number, or to start lap number 11, you'll see that Fraga has just dived into the pit, so that gives us second place, which was rather nice. And now we are chasing down Yamanaka, who is in first place and 10 seconds ahead of us. So at this point it gets quite interesting, because with Fraga pitting, does that mean that Yamanaka now is going to have to pit, or is he going the full distance? If he's going to go the full distance, then this strategy is not going to work. Now obviously you know that I managed to get first place in this particular video, so there's a fair chance that he's either going to crash, break down, drop out of the race for whatever reason, or he's going to pit. I'll let you decide which. So for now, this was really giving me the incentive to really push even harder, to concentrate even more than I was concentrating before. And the other thing that you'll notice at this point, as we're coming up to the last sort of corner before the long straight to start the 12th lap, is you'll notice the tyres. I was getting extremely concerned about the tyres at this point in time, particularly on the left-hand side of the car, both the front and the rear, really badly worn. The two right-hand tyres were okay, so I was able to lean on those a little bit more through the left-hand corners, but there are some really fast, tight right-handers in this particular track that really do chew up the tyres. So this is one of them now, is this very long sort of dome-shaped corner where you are really leaning on the left-hand tyres. So at this point you've got to be very much aware of that, particularly through that corner and some of the others where you are flat out. Just be very much aware that the grip levels are disappearing at the moment. So there we are. We're just running through now. We've got 3 or 4 laps to go at the moment. Oh, went really wide there. So there we go. There's an example of me not really giving enough respect for the wear of the tyres on the near side. That front left-hand tyre is now really starting to give up its grip. And obviously, the more that we slide, the more that we are wearing it. So at the moment, we're pretty much fully worn on both the left-hand side tyres. We're just starting lap 13. So we've got 13, 14, and then 15. 3 laps to do. And at this point, I was really confused. I was in 2 minds about the tyres here, because if I pit, I'm only 4.2 seconds ahead. So I didn't actually call it out, but Yamanaka has pitted, so that has given us first place, but we are only 4 seconds ahead. That's not enough to pit. I desperately need some tyres because they are really badly worn on the left-hand side. But if I pit at this point, I'm going to give up the race. There's no way that I'm going to be able to come in and do a, I don't know what it is, 20-odd second stop, and then come out, even on fresh soft tyres, which would be my preference, and be able to win this race with what is about to be only 2 laps to go. That corner there, if you do go wide, just use the tarmac to bring your car back onto the track. And if you do tuck in behind another car, you've obviously got the overtake button if you need it. Talking about the overtake button, at the moment I've got a quarter of the overtake button left. And at this point, I had decided to keep that just in case I needed it to defend against the faster cars behind. So at this stage, we are on very worn tyres, and that is going to definitely affect our performance. The car's sliding around a lot more than it was. We're having to brake differently, acceleration is more difficult, so we are losing time all of the time, in particular to those cars behind that are on the much fresher tyres. So that was the reason why I'd stopped using the overtake button, and I wanted to keep that for defending. So you see now that the car, I'm really starting to struggle a little bit. The back end is sliding, the front is not turning in, really having some real difficulties with the car right now. Did manage to get that one turned in, but we were a lot slower through that corner. And you can see that the second place car now, look how much they are catching. So we're now back onto the overtake button to try and just keep ahead of the second place car as we go into this first corner. And then we're just going to need to try and use some defensive driving to try and keep that car behind us as we are now on the final lap. Just the smallest amount of overtake left, and I really want to keep that for the very last corner. If we come out the last corner and we've got the drag to the line, I really need that little bit of overtake there. So we've already now got one right on the back of our car. We've also got another couple of cars behind. Now, one of the reasons why I chose this view with the dials, which is not the view that I normally run with, is I desperately wanted the big mirror to see what was going on behind me all of the time. The AI cars were constantly running me off the track. Now, I'll say that they were constantly running off the track. The reason for that is that I was not consistent. I was probably braking a bit early. I was turning in different places, and the AI cars are just running their line. So that was the reason why I had that mirror. At this point, my heart is going 10 to the dozen. So now we need to use that overtake button to try and keep ahead of Wong, who's got slipstream. You've also got Fraga. He's coming up on the outside as well. And this is a real drag. And we actually did it. First place. How on earth can you run that race on mediums from start to finish? They were completely shot. No margin at all between the first and second, but we did get the trophy, 200,000 credits, and that's how I did it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please consider subscribing to help me to get to that 1,000 subscribers. Hit the like button, and I'll see you again very soon. For now, take care. Bye-bye.